Is there, I guess you could call it the mood, is the mood in India, the people of India, are they in the mood for peace with Pakistan?
Yes.
And is the government selling that pitch to the people?
No. Peace with Pakistan is today at least not an issue that is getting much traction in terms of a discourse amongst the people or as a selling point of this government.
What do you think that is?
Well, I think this government has its plate full with so many problems they don't know where to start. You have inflation at 7%. You have a stock market that's shown a tremendous fall. You have a slowing down of growth. You have a continued crisis in agriculture. And whether we like it or not, Kashmir is relatively peaceful, and therefore it's almost a case of out of sight is out of mind. And since Kashmir is anyway peaceful, it's not something they need to talk about.
So there's bigger fish to fry.
There are, yeah, in a country of this size.
But Kashmir is pretty important, Mr. Abdullah.
I'm not saying that it's not important to the government. It's just not a selling point for the government at this point. It might be when the election come up, but it's not a selling point right now. And I guess they're right. They don't really have much to sell in terms of any concrete achievements.
We have to take a short break here. We're with Umar Abdullah talking about Kashmir on Talkback on our Eye on India series. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Talkback's Eye on India. This is the Kashmir special. We are with Umar Abdullah. See, some in Pakistan just say that India is plain and simple, intransigent, especially after the 4 points.
No, as I said, my understanding, even from your leadership of that time, who I had the chance of meeting when I was recently in Islamabad, there was a lot of progress that had been made. The only difference was that India was not as vocal.
But don't you think that's important in diplomacy? Being
No,
vocal?
I think more often than not, it's useful to keep quiet and let things move along. And if
it's important for the people, though, because there is this impasse in Pakistan.
Well, you can't sell the people a solution that you haven't yet arrived at.
But then there's been all this talk of CBMs, for example. Now, you've criticized some of the CBMs. You've said that the buses are running empty, that as far as the process is concerned, it's too arbitrary, it's too long. There's intelligence agencies involved, there's visa officials involved. What is the point of these bureaucrats and these politicians making these CBMs if they're just going to be put on paper and not in the process?
My point exactly. I've made this point both in India and in Pakistan, that the CBMs, rather than us looking at fresh CBMs that we can offer the people of Jammu and Kashmir, what we need to do is make sure the CBMs that we've already put on the table actually work.
See, that's why there's the school of thought in Pakistan which says that the CBMs are really all talk.
No, they're not all talk. Talk is important, but after talk, you need to implement. And I think the problem with the CBMs is that they need to come up for review now.
But do you think who wants to make peace more right now, politically? Pakistan, the Pakistani government, or India, as in the Indian government?
Well, I think you now have a new government in Pakistan, and even though the noises from that new government have been encouraging, I think we need to give your government a bit of time to settle down and find their feet. The same way this government has much bigger fish to fry, as you said, your government has no lesser big fish to fry. You've got a constitution that needs to be restored, a judiciary that some would say needs to be set right, and a government that needs to find its feet after a number of years out in the wilderness.
All right, we have to take a short break here. We're with Umar Abdullah. You're watching Talkback. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Talkback. We are with Umar Abdullah. Mr. Abdullah, is autonomy a pipe dream?
No, not at all. I think it fits in both with the constitutionally mandated position that Jammu and Kashmir has within the Indian Constitution, and also fits into what President Pervez Musharraf's 4-point proposal was in terms of self-rule or self-governance. You call your side of Jammu and Kashmir Azad Kashmir. Obviously that means that it has a greater degree of freedom than perhaps your other parts of Pakistan within the Pakistani Union, and therefore there's no reason why autonomy to both sides should remain a pipe dream.
But then there's, for example, Article 370. Your party has allied itself with another party, the BJP, in the past, which
No,
was
we
to
haven't.
scrap
We
370.
haven't allied ourselves with the BJP. We were part of an alliance called the National Democratic Alliance. Yes, one of the constituents of that alliance was the BJP, but at no point in time was the agenda of the National Democratic Alliance either the rebuilding of the Ram Temple, nor was it scrapping of Article 370, and nor was it the Common Civil Code. We would never have been able to align with any party that had its agenda for governance that included those three issues. And let's not forget, even though we were a part of the NDA, we still fought elections against the BJP in Jammu and Kashmir. It was never an electoral alliance. It was an alliance of governments and parties, but it was never reduced to the level of fighting elections on each other's platforms.
Would you work with the BJP in the future?
I think it's highly unlikely given the experience that we had working with them. We were alliance partners, we were part of the NDA, and yet they starved the state for funds like perhaps it had never been starved before. And the moment our government was replaced by another, suddenly the coffers opened up and money flowed into J&K. So our past experience hasn't been the best one.
See, there's been at least a couple of moments. I remember, like, for example, the Gujarat killings. Weren't they a reason enough to head out of the NDA, to break away from the BJP?
This was a question that I was asked in Jammu in a press conference yesterday as well. And the answer I gave them is the one I'm going to give you today. I did resign from the government. I even voted in parliament against the government of which I was a part. But I didn't press my resignation. And the reason, perhaps mistakenly so now with hindsight, I should have. The reason I didn't press the resignation was I didn't believe that Atal Bihari Vajpayee was responsible for what happened in Gujarat. Narendra Modi was. And by resigning from Atal Bihari Vajpayee's government, I would perhaps have been painting the finger of blame on him. I think what Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee was guilty of doing was not stopping Mr. Narendra Modi. But I made the mistaken judgment call that I didn't want to hold him responsible for what was happening in Gujarat. It was primarily Narendra Modi's responsibility. Maybe with hindsight, that judgment call wasn't the right one to make.
But some say that you just hung on primarily because of the power.
No, if I had to hang on, I would have stayed on. I quit government in October of that year anyway.
All right. Step one, step two. Is autonomy step one and is independence step two?
No, independence is not an option for Jammu and Kashmir. It is not feasible. Jammu and Kashmir, for various reasons, not the least of which is geographic, is not a land that we can conceivably imagine as an independent country, especially when it's squeezed between neighbors like Afghanistan, Pakistan, China, and India.
What about self-determination then?
I don't see circumstances under which self-determination becomes a viable option. The map of Jammu and Kashmir has been so distorted, particularly on the Pakistani side, that it's difficult to imagine a situation where self-determination becomes a viable option. At least...
How on the Pakistani side?
I'm coming to that. Whatever complaints I might have against the government of India for whatever they've done, they haven't tinkered around with the territory of Jammu and Kashmir after the ceasefire line or the line of control was drawn. The Jammu and Kashmir that existed then is the Jammu and Kashmir that exists now. Even the demography, because of Article 370 and the state subject laws that we have, even the demography has not been tinkered with. You haven't had a flood of non-state subjects into the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Your map of Jammu and Kashmir is very different from the map that it was in 1947. What you call Azad Kashmir is only a fraction of the Jammu and Kashmir that you actually have control over. Your northern areas were traditionally Jammu and Kashmir. Now they're federally administrated areas. Aksai Chin is a part of Jammu and Kashmir, which you chose to gift to China for reasons that are best known to you. And therefore, your map of Jammu and Kashmir is very different from what it was in 1947. Your demography is very different from what it was in 1947. And therefore, to expect in such changed circumstances that you will give the right to self-determination along the patterns of what was proposed in 1947 is not feasible.